We're both white. But our baby is black. Now my boyfriend wants a DNA test. I'm staring at my newborn daughter's beautiful dark skin while my boyfriend paces behind me, and for the first time in 9 months, I'm watching the man I love become a stranger. We're both white. She's black. And the question hanging in this hospital room isn't about love anymore. It's about trust, genetics, and whether our relationship can survive what science is about to reveal. Hey, story lover. Welcome to the Narrative Hub, Reddit Stories. Believe me, this adventure gets wild, but it's only epic with you. Seriously, you make this possible. Want more stories? Greater adventure? Smash subscribe right now. Smash like. Comment below. Let's go. Let me take you back to where this all began, because what happened in that delivery room 3 weeks ago has turned my entire world upside down. My name is Evelyn, and 3 years ago, I thought I'd found my person. William walked into the coffee shop where I worked, ordered a simple black coffee, and somehow we ended up talking for 2 hours about everything from childhood memories to our dreams for the future. He was kind, funny, and had this way of making me feel like I was the only person in the room. We were both from similar backgrounds, middle-class families from the suburbs, both with German and Irish ancestry that we could trace back generations. Our families blended perfectly at holidays, sharing stories about great-grandparents who'd immigrated with nothing but hope in their hearts. When I got pregnant last year, William was over the moon. He started reading parenting books immediately, painted the nursery himself, and would spend hours at night talking to my belly about all the adventures he wanted to share with our child. We'd lie in bed making plans, choosing names, wondering if she'd have his green eyes or my blonde hair. The pregnancy was textbook perfect. Every ultrasound, every appointment, everything looked exactly as it should. We even had a gender reveal party where William cried happy tears when we found out we were having a daughter. He kept saying, "I'm going to have a little princess." October 15th started like any other day. I woke up with contractions around 6 a.m., and by noon, we were at the hospital. William held my hand through every contraction, whispering encouragement and telling me how proud he was. The nurses commented on what a sweet couple we were, how excited we both seemed. Labor was long but uncomplicated. And then, after 18 hours, she was here. Emma Rose, 7 pounds 3 ounces, perfectly healthy. But the moment the doctor placed her in my arms, the room went dead silent. Emma had beautiful, unmistakably dark skin. Her hair was thick and curly. Her features were stunning, but they told a story that seemed impossible given who her parents were supposed to be. I looked up at William, expecting to see the same wonder I felt holding our daughter. Instead, his face had gone completely white. His mouth was slightly open, and he was staring at Emma like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. "William," I whispered, but he didn't respond. He just kept staring. The doctor cleared his throat awkwardly. "Congratulations," he said, but even his voice sounded uncertain. Then William finally spoke, and his words cut through me like ice. "That's not my baby." What happened next was like watching our relationship collapse in slow motion. William stepped back from the bed, his hands shaking. "Evelyn, I need you to explain this to me," he said, his voice barely controlled. "Because we're both white. You're white. I'm white. And she." He gestured toward Emma. "She's not?" The nurses suddenly found reasons to be elsewhere. I could feel their uncomfortable glances as they busied themselves with paperwork and equipment checks. "William, she's beautiful," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "She's our daughter." "Don't." His voice was sharper now. "Don't try to explain this away. I'm not stupid, Evelyn. This doesn't just happen." The worst part wasn't his anger, it was the look in his eyes. Like he was seeing me for the first time and realizing he'd been living with a stranger. "I want a DNA test," he said finally. "I want it done immediately." I felt like I was drowning. Here I was, holding our beautiful newborn daughter, and instead of celebrating, I was defending my faithfulness to the man I loved. William left the hospital that night. Just walked out without another word, leaving me alone with Emma and 1,000 questions spinning through my head. I spent the entire night staring at my daughter, trying to understand what had happened. She was perfect, every tiny finger, every little expression. But I couldn't deny what William had seen. Emma looked nothing like either of us. The next morning, my mom arrived, took one look at Emma, and went completely silent. Then she pulled me aside. "Evelyn, honey," she said carefully, "is there something you need to tell me?" Even my own mother was questioning me. That's when I realized this wasn't going to blow over. This wasn't something we could just work through with love and communication. William genuinely believed I had cheated on him, and honestly, looking at the situation from the outside, I couldn't blame him for thinking that. But I knew the truth. I had never been unfaithful. Not once in 3 years. The problem was, the truth seemed impossible to prove when the evidence was sleeping peacefully in my arms. While William stayed at his brother's place, I dove into research. I needed to understand how this could have happened, because if I was going to save my relationship, I needed answers. What I discovered shocked me. Genetics, it turns out, are far more complex than most people realize. There's something called genetic recombination, where dormant genes from generations back can suddenly express themselves. It's rare, but it happens. I learned about cases where white parents had children with different skin tones due to mixed ancestry they never knew about. Sometimes it goes back several generations, a great-great-grandmother who was passing as white, or an ancestor whose true heritage was hidden by family secrets. But even with all this research, I knew William wouldn't be satisfied with explanations. He wanted proof. Hard, scientific proof. 3 days after Emma was born, William came back to the hospital. He looked like he hadn't slept at all. "I've arranged for the DNA test," he said without preamble. "They can do it today." I nodded. What choice did I have? The process was simple, just cheek swabs from all 3 of us. The hardest part was watching William interact with Emma during the collection. He was gentle with her, but distant. Like he was afraid to get attached to a baby he believed wasn't his. "Results will be ready in 72 hours, the technician said. 72 hours. 3 days to find out if my family would survive. Those 3 days were the longest of my life. William stayed at his brother's, and we barely spoke except for logistical conversations about Emma's care. He would visit for an hour each day, holding her awkwardly, his face carefully neutral. I could see him fighting with himself. One moment he'd be looking at Emma with something like longing, and the next he'd catch himself and put that wall back up. My friends tried to be supportive, but I could tell they were all thinking the same thing William was. The math just didn't add up in their minds. Meanwhile, I was falling deeper in love with Emma every day. She was such a good baby, hardly cried, slept well, and had these alert little eyes that seemed to take in everything around her. But every time I looked at her, I was reminded of the crisis her existence had created. The surprise visit. On the second day of waiting, something unexpected happened. William's grandmother, Helen, showed up at my apartment. Helen was 89 years old, sharp as a tack, and had always been William's favorite family member. She was also someone who never pulled punches. "I heard about the baby," she said, settling into my armchair like she owned the place. "I want to see her." I brought Emma out, nervous about what Helen might say. But when she saw Emma, something strange happened to her face. She went very still, and her eyes filled with tears. "Oh my goodness," she whispered. "She looks just like him." "Like William?" I asked, confused. "No, dear. Like my husband. Like William's grandfather." Helen proceeded to tell me something that no one in William's family had ever shared. His grandfather, Thomas, had been adopted. His birth parents had been a mixed-race couple in the 1930s, but Thomas had been light-skinned enough to pass as white his entire life. Thomas never talked about it, Helen said. It was a different time. Being mixed race wasn't accepted the way it might be now. But I knew. I was the only one he ever told. She pulled out an old photograph from her purse, a faded black and white picture of a young man who looked remarkably similar to how Emma might look as she grew older. William doesn't know, Helen continued. Thomas made me promise never to tell anyone. But seeing Emma, genetics don't lie, dear. Sometimes they just skip a few generations. I stared at the photograph, my hands shaking. Here was the answer I'd been desperately searching for. Emma wasn't the result of infidelity. She was the result of family history that had been buried for decades. You need to tell William, I said. Helen nodded slowly. I know. I've been wrestling with it since I heard. Thomas has been gone for 15 years now. I suppose some secrets don't need to stay buried forever. But she wanted to wait for the DNA results first. If I'm wrong, she said, then this would just be cruel to everyone involved. That night, I lay in bed holding Emma and thinking about family secrets, about the stories we tell ourselves about who we are, and about how the past has ways of revealing itself when we least expect it. The call came on Friday afternoon. William was already on his way over. We'd agreed to open the results together. He arrived looking haggard, like he'd been dreading this moment as much as I had. We sat on my couch with Emma sleeping between us and the sealed envelope on the coffee table. Whatever this says, I told him, I want you to know that I love you. I've never been unfaithful to you. Not once. He nodded, but didn't say anything. With shaking hands, I opened the envelope and pulled out the official document. DNA paternity test results. Probability of paternity, 99.97%. William Thompson is the biological father of Emma Rose Thompson. The relief that washed over me was overwhelming. I started crying, happy tears mixed with tears of exhaustion and stress from the past week. William stared at the paper for a long time, reading it over and over. Then he looked at Emma, really looked at her, for the first time since she was born. I don't understand, he said quietly. How is this possible? That's when I called Helen. She'd been waiting by her phone, and she came over within an hour. What followed was one of the most emotional conversations I've ever witnessed. Helen sat William down and told him the truth about his grandfather, about the family history that had been hidden for nearly a century. William was shocked, then angry that he'd never been told, then confused about what it all meant. But as Helen showed him more old photographs and shared stories about Thomas, I could see him beginning to understand. So Emma isn't. I mean, she's. He struggled with the words. She's your daughter, Helen said firmly. She's got your grandfather's genes, your grandmother's stubborn streak, and her mother's beautiful heart. She's exactly who she's supposed to be. I wish I could say everything was perfect after that, but the truth is, healing took time. William had spent a week believing I'd betrayed him, and I'd spent a week feeling like the man I loved had abandoned us when we needed him most. We had to rebuild trust. We had to learn how to talk about difficult things. And we had to figure out how to explain Emma's appearance to friends and family who would inevitably have questions. But slowly, day by day, we found our way back to each other. William started bonding with Emma properly, and it was beautiful to watch. He would spend hours just staring at her, marveling at her little expressions, and trying to identify which features came from which side of the family. Emma's birth opened up conversations in both our families about identity, about assumptions we make about genetics, and about the stories families tell themselves. Helen decided to share Thomas's story with the entire family, and it sparked a genealogy project that revealed all sorts of interesting family history. We also had to navigate the social aspects of raising a child who doesn't look like her parents. People stare sometimes. They make assumptions. Cashiers at the grocery store ask if I'm babysitting. It's something we're still learning to handle with grace and education. But Emma is thriving. She's 6 months old now, happy and healthy, and absolutely beautiful. She has William's smile and what I'm told are Thomas's eyes. Just when we thought we had all the answers, we got a call from the genetic testing company. They wanted to follow up on our case because Emma's results had flagged something unusual in their database. It turns out that Thomas wasn't just mixed race. He was connected to a fascinating piece of American history. Through DNA matching, they discovered that he was descended from a prominent African American family that had been separated during slavery. Some family members had ended up passing as white, while others had maintained their black identity. Emma's birth had accidentally connected us to living relatives we never knew existed. Cousins in Chicago who had been researching their own family tree and had hit dead ends suddenly had answers. We had dinner with them last month, and the resemblance between Emma and some of their children was striking. What started as a crisis in our relationship had become a bridge to understanding our true family history. William and I are stronger than we ever were before. Going through this experience taught us that love isn't just about the good times, it's about fighting for each other when things get complicated and confusing. We're planning our wedding for next spring. Emma will be walking by then, and Helen insists on being the flower girl coordinator. William's proposal was simple and perfect. I want to marry the woman who gave me the most beautiful daughter in the world and helped me discover who my family really is. We've also become advocates for genetic education. We volunteer with an organization that helps families understand complex inheritance patterns and navigate situations like ours. It turns out we're not as unique as we thought. These cases happen more often than people realize, but they're rarely talked about openly. Looking back, I realized that Emma's birth didn't create a problem. It revealed a truth that had been hiding in our family for generations. She didn't tear us apart. She made us stronger and more connected to our real history. Every night when I put her to bed, I tell her the story of her great-great-grandfather Thomas, about how he was brave enough to create a life in a world that wasn't always accepting, and about how her very existence is proof that love and family transcend the simple categories we try to put people in. Emma is 3 months old now, and she's perfect. She's William's daughter, she's my daughter, and she's a beautiful bridge between past and present, between secrets and truth, and between the family we thought we were and the family we actually are. The DNA test that William demanded in anger and fear ended up being the key that unlocked a century of hidden family history. Sometimes the thing you think will destroy you is actually the thing that saves you. And sometimes, when you're staring at your newborn daughter's beautiful face while your world seems to be falling apart, you're actually witnessing the moment when your real life, your true family, finally begins.